Hello, friends, and welcome back to r/ProRevenge. In the first story, we'll tell you how our OP punished the boss's annoying friend. But before we begin, don't forget to subscribe to our channel if you're new here and turn on notifications so you don't miss a new video every single day. Here we go. I worked at an auto body and paint shop back in the 90s. We had a guy that was somewhat a friend with the owner and would always call up and harass us by being a jerk when we were busy, and it was always for his benefit and for no benefit of the company. One day he called me up and without identifying himself or greeting, etc., he demanded, "Who do you guys get body parts from?" I was trying to respond that it was multiple vendors and I would need more information, but he thought I was giving him the runaround, so he demanded, by commanding, "I need to know where to get body parts from now." So I said, "Please hold," and decided that I was done with this crap, so I gave him the phone number to the local hospital. I found out from his son about a week later that he called the hospital and inquired about getting some new body parts, and he didn't want old ones, so they called 911 on him. Apparently, he was too embarrassed by all of this to call us. And our second story. The alcohol isn't a problem right now. So I work at a movie theater, a rather small chain in my town, and about 2 weeks ago, on a Saturday, I was working an 8-hour shift. I was on theater checks, making sure no one brought in any kind of snacks or drinks we don't sell. I realized one of the screens wasn't projecting the movie, so I told my boss. He flew into panic mode trying to fix it, and I continued my checks in the other theaters. In my last theater, I found a man drinking what looked like rum out of a water bottle. Normally in this scenario, you'd tell the current manager you're going to kick out the drinker because that's our policy, and then you would proceed to kick out the drinker. So I told my boss while he was working on the projector, and he told me the alcohol isn't a effing problem right now. So I decided since he was going to be such a jerk about it, I wouldn't do anything since it wasn't a problem. Turns out the man had much more alcohol and got very drunk. He tore down the screen that the projector displayed the visual on, and my manager had to refund each individual customer. It took him around an hour. I think he got what he deserved. And our last story. Companies screwed me, so I helped the federal government to screw them back 10 million times worse. This was back in 2015. I'd recently been let go from my previous gig. My dad had just been diagnosed with cancer, and due to my less than killer performance in channel partner sales, they needed me to start working weekends. Of course, this was a non-starter with my dad being sick, so we shook hands and went our separate ways. No hard feelings, but now I'm out of work. Crap. A month or two later, I was offered a great job with a large company that was a sizable bump in pay and a much better title, so of course I accepted. But I had to move across the country to take this job. But it was worth it, and Dad seemed to be on the mend, and the cancer seemed to be in remission. So I felt okay with moving away. At the time, I lived about 30 minutes away from my parents. The new company was a massive short-term lending company with over 1,000 locations across the U.S. and was the leader in payday loans, title loans, etc. I didn't love the idea of working for one of these type companies, but I figured making poor financial decisions all the time, and no one is forcing them to take the loan, and they likely understand what they're getting into. Important note. My job at Company A was basically to line up partnerships to help drive referrals to us from people looking for loans but didn't qualify for a real bank loan. I quickly ramped up the monthly revenue to $1 million plus a month in just a few months being there. Everyone was nice, seemed like a good gig, except for one ex-Army a-hole who I'll call Sergeant A-hole. He would make snarky comments about everyone, watch the clock, and report you to HR if you came in at 9:05 instead of 9 a.m., leaving at 4:45, not 5 p.m., etc. You get the picture. Part of my job was to audit the third-party applications to verify the loans that occurred and the loan balance/amount to calculate the referral commission for the affiliates. Basic due diligence. But I had to look at the contract for the loan they signed and the accompanying terms and conditions, and that's when I started seeing red flags left and right. People on welfare or Social Security taking loans against their car title with payment terms they would never be able to pay back. Old ladies taking out a personal loan against her Social Security payments to help pay for their grandkids' school books, etc. Just heartbreaking scenarios. Having a background in business finance and business law from college, I knew they were royally screwed the moment they signed that contract and would eventually lose their only car through repossession, be forced to sign over Social Security checks to make due on the loan, as they unfortunately agreed to that in the contract. Just awful things. I started bringing this up to any exec or leader that would listen. They all said, okay, but no change happened. I think we all felt super crappy as a group about this company deep down, but it's our livelihood. Around this point, my gut kept telling me to document this and keep it for some reason. I didn't know what I would do with it at the time. I just felt this urge to do so. So I did. I stayed and started collecting every bit of info I could find on them, coercing people, even illiterate people, into signing the loan. I saw this in person multiple times doing store audits, basically using sleazy used car salesman tactics to close the loan. Company A intentionally not explaining that the 28% interest is monthly, not annual, and you have to basically close the loan every month that's not paid in full and sign a new one every month with new interest, carry over from the previous balance, plus new fees, several hundred per new loan, basically every month. And overall, just taking full advantage of desperate, financially illiterate people, fully knowing they couldn't ever pay off the loan, and they would milk them for every dollar, then repo their car and sell it at auction, or threaten to make their past loan payments known to their employer and threaten to garnish wages. Just horribly crappy, mean-spirited business practices. I hated it, and hated Company A and everyone in leadership that knew this was happening and basically said, this is our business practices, it's legal. I knew full well it was not legal or ethical. I followed my gut instinct and had one of those mini handheld scanners and would print off every CFPB/federal violation I came across. I'd scan it and save it, compile it at home on an SD card. So one day, Mom calls. Dad's in very bad shape. I run it by Awesome Boss. He says, don't talk, go home, come back when you're ready. Awesome, amazing guy with a huge heart. He'll always have a special place in my heart for that response. He understood work was not important right now. For context, Sergeant A-Hole was passed over for Awesome Boss's job and was given to Awesome Boss instead. So from day one, Sergeant A-Hole had it out for all of us, and he wanted that gig and was determined to get it by any means necessary. Next day back home, Awesome Boss calls me, tells me he's been fired. Apparently, Sergeant A-Hole complained to the CEO and COO about his lax approach to his team, letting me leave without approval, etc., and now Sergeant A-Hole is my boss, and Awesome Boss lets me know that Sergeant A-Hole will probably fire me too once I get back, so wanted to give me a heads up. With everything else I was dealing with, he just didn't want me to be blindsided. A number one guy. I stay through the funeral, then fly back to face the music. 10 minutes in, Sergeant A-Hole calls me into his office, tells me I violated company policy by taking unapproved time off, and that we needed to talk to HR. I explained what happened, Dad passed, funeral, Mom is distraught, etc. He says, I'm sorry that happened, but company policy doesn't excuse that. The lady in HR felt so bad I had to be fired, by COO nonetheless. I tell her I've only been here 4 months and I spent all my savings relocating down here for the job. This really puts me in a difficult financial situation. She says she'll work hard to get me some severance, as I don't qualify for unemployment yet, being there for just a few months. Sergeant A-Hole chimes in, well, you wouldn't qualify anyways. You're being fired for non-compliance and excessive absences. Okay, WTF, dude. HR calls me on the phone the next day saying Sergeant A-Hole contacted COO to make sure I didn't get any severance. So now I'm broke, 5 months into a 12-month lease with no money and no job. I'm up Crab Creek without a paddle, and without my go-to guy, my dad, in this situation. I had to sell most of my stuff, pack up, and move home to live with my mom. Now comes the righteous revenge. I tried to be civil, but the new boss and the exec team played dirty. The time of reckoning is now. I remembered my database of incriminating practices that violated CFPB guidelines, call up Awesome Boss to get his feedback and advice, and he wants to help. Now we have a team. We spent the next several weeks building a massive file to submit to the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau for unfair and predatory lending practices by Company A, which we were somewhat complicit in, but both voiced our concerns. But we needed to make this right. We knew we'd been a part of this monster, and it's the least we should do to correct it. I gave everything I had to my Awesome Boss, now teammate, and we provided the CFPB everything I'd seen in the brick-and-mortar locations, all the incriminating docs I had, and gave 2 detailed written statements of our concerns about Company A to the CFPB for their investigation under the condition of anonymity. We never heard back and assumed nothing would come of it, but we did our best to right this wrong we'd participated in. Unknown to us, there were thousands of complaints against Company A by consumers, and Awesome Boss let me know he heard from them, and what we provided helped them build their cases against Company A. Awesome Boss calls me about 5 months later, now early 2016, to let me know the CFPB called him and something is about to happen. This led to a fairly large consumer protection investigation into Company A, unknown to me and Awesome Boss at the time, but another several months pass, we didn't hear or see anything, so I figured they hired some top-shelf lawyers and made it go away. That is until June of 2016. While drinking coffee and applying for new jobs at my mom's house one morning, I was watching CNBC and hear Company A's name come up. I turn to watch and see that they're getting hit with huge fines, legal fees, and their business has to basically stop all business until the case is resolved. So they ended up being levied almost $10 million in fines, over $20 million in legal fees, and lost out on about $50 million in revenue while the government pressed pause on their operation, all thanks to Sergeant A-Hole, which I later found out from a previous coworker that Sergeant A-Hole was fired and thrown under the bus for not reporting employee complaints to the exec team. But they knew full well. I told the COO multiple times what we were doing is probably illegal, but they made Sergeant A-Hole the sacrificial lamb in this case. Hey guys, thank you all for watching the video. I'll see you in the next one.